Hey guys, in today's video we're going to talk about Christopher. He got sick and he is currently in the hospital right now, and he's been here since Monday, and today is Thursday night, about like 9 o'clock. So this whole thing started because last Thursday was their last day at school and they had early release. So I came home about an hour after they did from school, him and Leah, and everything was quiet. So I was like, what in the heck is going on here? So I go upstairs and Christopher's just laying in his bed, and I was like, what's wrong, dude? Like, he wasn't playing the video game or anything, which is really weird. So he says, I don't feel good. And I said, well, what kind of feel good? And he says, I think I'm just hungry. Will you make me some noodles? So I put the noodles in the microwave, and before they even stopped, I heard him vomit upstairs. So I was like, oh, great, here we go. So Leah had the neurovirus about 3 weeks prior to that, and I took her to the pediatrician for it, and they basically just gave me a pill for nausea because she wasn't vomiting. She was just felt really, really sick on her last day. So they gave me a pill for nausea for her, and basically just told me to keep her hydrated, plenty of fluids and whatnot, and she'd be fine. So I said, well, I'm not going to take Christopher to the doctor for neurovirus. We're going to wait it out and see what happens. So Thursday and Friday, he threw up a little bit here and there. Then Saturday morning, we realized that he had started getting diarrhea. So the vomiting kind of stopped, and then he spiked a fever Saturday afternoon of 104. So I gave him some Tylenol to kill off that, and it did. He didn't run a fever after that, and then the vomiting had kind of stopped, so it returned Saturday night. Then Saturday night, it seemed like the diarrhea had quit. The vomiting came back, and there was no fever. We were still checking his fever orally by his mouth every hour. No fever. Then Sunday morning, he still no fever, no diarrhea, still vomiting. So we were pumping him full of fluids. We were giving him Pedialyte popsicles, Powerade, all that good stuff. Trying to get him to eat crackers. He had ate Friday night. He ate a little bit on Sunday. Chris gave him a bowl of cereal, which I had told him milk is the worst thing for him right now. Please do not give him that. But it's what Christopher said he wanted, so I gave it to him. He didn't eat the whole bowl of cereal. He only had a couple of bites, but still he had, some kind of food. Then later on, Christopher asked for chocolate milk, and I was like, dude, why are you giving him chocolate milk? But again, that's what he wanted, so that's what he got. So that was on Sunday. So Sunday night, he started to act funny. So he started saying things which we thought that he was just sleeping and like coming out of his sleep and saying weird stuff. And then weirdly enough, I had my niece at the house, and she's only 4, so she wanted to sleep upstairs in the guest room, and I said, okay, that's fine, but I'm going to go up there and put you to bed. So I went up the stairs with her and put her to bed. Well, then I came back down, took a shower, and then went back to check on her and make sure she was still okay up there. And Christopher came out into the living room, and it was almost like he tried to walk out there and fell or something, or like he threw his body out there. It was really weird and scary. So I asked him, what are you doing? And he's like, I was looking for you. And I was like, okay, I'm right here. And he says, where are you, Mom? And I'm like, I'm right here, like looking at you, talking to you. So that was really weird. So he says, well, can you get my bed? Meaning he had a cot in our room that he was sleeping on. So I went in the room and got his cot and everything and put it in the living room for him. And he slept there for a few hours. And then he came into our room and he asked if he can get in bed with us, which is like really weird because we never have slept with our kids ever. So he crawls in bed with us and he stays there for a little bit. And then he gets back down on the floor, and then it's time for Chris to go to work. So he goes to work about 5 o'clock-ish. So then after he went to work, I looked online to see when Christopher's doctor's office opened because he had already had an appointment with the pediatrician, and I was just going to take him in there and see what they could do for him for this neurovirus, if they can do anything at all. So I looked online. The office didn't open until 8 o'clock. And when I called, all I could get was an answering service, and that wasn't helping me. So I said, okay, we'll wait for this, we'll wait for this office to open. So then I go down there because I couldn't get a hold of anybody. I guess their phone was still on like night mode where the answering service was coming on. So we get to the pediatrician's office, and I basically have all his weight on me, and he's like walking but laying most of his weight on me to get into the office. They immediately brought him a wheelchair. He couldn't even walk to the back. He could barely stand for them to take his weight. Then the pediatrician just basically looks at him. His eyes are sunken in. He has black rings around his eyes. No pain anywhere. His right hand, he hurt on Memorial Day. So he had this big slide. We went to a party and had a big slide there, the blow up things. And one of the kids were coming down the slide part. He was going up the ladder part, and he put his hand in the way of the slide part as someone was coming down, and it bit his middle finger all the way back. So the pediatrician says, I think that hand's probably broke. And when she did the exam and felt on his stomach, his right side was hurting really bad. So she said, you need to take him to the hospital because I don't know that I have everything I need here to treat him. I said, okay. So she called it into the hospital, and they were there waiting for us in the ER. We get to the ER. I explained to them everything that happened over the weekend and his hand. So they bring somebody in, they x-ray his hand, they look at his stomach, and they immediately give him IV fluids because he was dehydrated. So at this point, his kidneys were only functioning at 50%. They did the x-ray on his hand, and it was broken, in fact. His sugar test came back, and it was like 218, so that was crazy for him. He only weighed 95 pounds. His appendix is what the pain in his side was. He never once complained about that pain in his side unless they were doing an exam on him and pushing down on it. So the only time he complained about the side where the appendix is if they push down. Everybody says to me, like, how do you not know that his appendix was hurting? Like, he had to be in pain. No, he didn't. He never said that he was in pain. Apparently we know now he has a very high pain tolerance. So they were, treating him for that. They said, okay, we're going to go ahead and admit him because of his kidneys, and we need to figure out what's going on with the appendix. So they admitted him into one hospital, watched him, gave him fluids, this and that, and let me tell you, the whole time he's still talking crazy. Like, he said things to me, like, before we got to the doctor's office, like, where's the car? And I said, it's in the garage. And he was like, okay. And he says, where's our house? And I said, we're in it. So it was just like things like that he was saying, really, really crazy. It was scaring me to death. And the not walking thing. He couldn't walk. Like, that was crazy to see my 13-year-old child can't walk and talking really crazy. So at one point in the hospital, he even said, where is everybody? Meaning his cousins and people that were at the house. And I said, they're at home. And he says, no, I can hear Channing. And I was like, no, you don't hear Channing. He was like, yes, I can. I was like, okay. So, we were at the one hospital. We got admitted. They took all the food from him. They said no more food. They don't know what's wrong with him. They needed to get all the tests run and things like that. So they did an EKG. They did an ultrasound on his kidneys. They did an ultrasound for his appendix. They did a CAT scan. They did x-ray for his appendix. They did all that kind of stuff to him. Urine sample, stool sample, the whole nine. So at one point, a doctor came from Orlando and told us at this hospital, they don't have the doctors nor the equipment that they need to treat him. You need to go to this other hospital about an hour away. So we're like, okay, if that's what we got to do, that's what we got to do. So me and Christopher get in the ambulance and ride out here to Orlando. Chris goes home, takes care of Leah, and then he comes up shortly after. So we get here and they're waiting for us. They meet us here. Everybody's here in the room whenever we get here. And all the staff is very, very nice here. And he's in the ICU. Well, now his kidneys have improved every single day. He has full function of his kidneys now at this point. Today they went and looked at his hand again, because that was like the last thing that they cared about was his hand. They needed everything else to look good. He does need a cast, the break. Well, actually they call it a spiral fracture. So that's going to be taken care of with a cast. He's really mad about that, because all he wanted to do was be able to sit up here and play video games, means he can't do anything else. And he feels he can't do that if he has a cast on his hand, which we all know that he will figure out a way to hold the controller and play a video game. But, so what is really, really the problem is, once we got here, they had the sample from the other hospital tested, and they didn't have the results back. So they received the results at the new hospital, and they said he tested positive for a very bad strain of E. coli. So that was horrible, but at least we knew like what we were treating now, and the only way to treat that is to, you know, do IV fluids and things like that with antibiotics and whatnot, and then give him stuff for pain for the appendix. Well, once they found that out, they also found out that he has gas in his intestines, or bacteria in his intestines, and that apparently is a really, really bad thing. So they can't even touch the appendix until they get rid of the gas. So it's called anematosis, is the gas in the intestines. So he has anematosis. Now, that is their number one concern. Now that his kidneys are doing good, his sugar came completely down to normal, where it should be. His high blood pressure came down where it should be. Everything is pretty much normal, except for he has the anematosis. Now today his pain is very bad in his right side where his appendix is. They said he has a perforated appendix, and he has basically like a poop ball in his appendix. So they retested his sample for the E. coli, and it came back negative for the new hospital twice. So then they call the other hospital and say, you know, how was this ran? You know, we need you to run it again, do it for a culture, blah, blah, blah. Well, as it turns out, somebody got some misinformation, and he never had E. coli. So that was a blessing, but now we're back at square one. We don't know what's wrong with him exactly. We don't know what strand of bacteria this is, so they don't know which antibiotics to give him. So they're treating him for the nematosis now, and all they can do for that is give him the antibiotics and let it run through his body, because they say if they go to remove the appendix and that gas escapes from his intestines and leaks into his bloodstream, that'll be a much worse situation. So the appendix is staying for now. He cannot eat. He has not eaten anything since Monday, and it's Thursday. He has only had his IV fluids, which have glucose and carbs and stuff, and have been keeping him stable. At this point, he can still barely walk because he doesn't have the nourishment. So starting tomorrow, they're going to be doing physical therapy to get him back walking again. And tonight, they have started feeding him through an IV. So earlier today, he went and got a PICC line put in, and that's so that he can get his nourishment through the PICC line, and also so they can put different medications through that line that they can't normally put through an IV, and they won't have to worry about anything happening to the IV. They already lost one vein because of the IV. So the PICC line is more of a long-term thing. They say that can be in there up to a month. We're not in ICU anymore. They just took us out a few hours ago and put us into a regular room. There are talks of us going back to the other hospital because it's closer to home, but we don't know if they have the right, doctors or equipment. Like, that's why they sent us here, to help him out. But as of right now, we're basically just observing him, getting rid of the nematosis, and doing the physical therapy to get him walking around again. As far as the cast goes, they are going to cast it, but they're giving him overnight so that he can have a little bit of time to, play his video game or whatever, because he was really, really upset that he was just going to have to sit here. He knows he's not going to have to eat. He's not going to be able to eat for 2 weeks, and he's really mad about that. So his whole goal is he wants to get a mini refrigerator when we get home and put it in his room and fill it full of snacks and drinks, because he's missing out on all those snacks and drinks right now. He keeps saying that we're taking his summer away from him because of all this. So my thing on this is I just feel horrible because I feel like I missed something. Like, as a mom, I should have known that something wasn't right after he threw up for so many days. But he did take a break from throwing up for a long time Saturday, and then Sunday, he wasn't really throwing up. He was kind of like spitting up. And when he was in 2nd grade, he was doing this. He would like spit up or whatever at school, and then they would send him home like every day. So the doctor said that he had what they call GERD, and that would be a regular thing that he would do, and that we should just not worry about it unless it gets really bad. And he wrote a note for the school so that they wouldn't send him home all the time for it. So whenever he's spitting up, I wasn't thinking that he's not actually throwing up because he's dehydrated, because we were giving him tons of fluids, and we were I was making sure that, how many popsicles did he have? Did he drink that entire Gatorade? Like, I was tracking that stuff. But there was nothing you can do whenever there's appendicitis, and your child doesn't say they're in pain. So that's where we're at now. We're just monitoring him, and I will keep everybody updated as we go. So here's a little clip of him in the hospital, and then his x-ray from his hand, the first x-ray. I don't have the second x-ray yet, but I will soon. So thanks for watching. I'll keep y'all posted.
For the next one, just go ahead and turn it just a little bit. Relax this part of your finger. So you're gonna kind of go like this, like you pinch like this. Yeah, perfect. There you go.
No. What am I waiting for?
Nothing.
Oh, okay. You're moving that arm, so it keeps making that go off. What do you mean? Another thing? Like this?
Something.
Like, that's what you want? To wipe your lips? Okay.
Hi.
Say how you feel.
I'm, okay, I guess. I can't eat that much. Can't eat at all. But I'm getting well.